What do you do when margins are thin? It's tough, right? We've all been there before. Well, our guest today is going to tell you what he did to survive the paper-thin margins of the grocery business, long enough to become an award-winning grocer and restaurateur. He's also going to tell you why every penny matters. After all, every little thing counts. Stay tuned. Part 1 of this action-packed episode is coming up next.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy.
Today's guest is Andy Marshall, CEO and owner of A. Marshall Family Foods, as well as the genius behind grocery brand Puckett's and the restaurant New Deacon South. Andy is a decorated restaurateur and grocer, having won the Spirit of America Award for Entrepreneurship, Nashville's Best in Business Award, in addition to being on the Inc. 5000 for his 4th year in a row. So if you want to take your business to the next level, or just want some tips, tricks, and tools on how to create an experience for your clients, then keep it locked. You won't want to miss Thor's interview with this award-winning guest.
Andy, thank you very much for joining us today. I am looking forward to this interview, and it's funny, when I was going through your bio and everything, it brought back some shivering memories, because you started out in the grocery business, and before I started doing what I do now, I used to work up in that big city, New York City, and I was doing private equity, and it was without fail. If we wanted to lose money, we just made sure that we invested in grocery chains.
Absolutely. The margins are so thin. I mean, how could you make money?
Oh, I mean, it's unbelievable. I remember going in and talking to the CEO of, it was in Oklahoma. It had gone bankrupt so many times it wasn't even funny. I forget the name of the chain. Big national chain based out of Oklahoma. And their workers' compensation costs were going up something like $1 million. And, they were having trouble with people slipping and falling on grapes in the grocery aisles, in the fruit, the fruit section. Something about grapes in grocery stores and floors do not work well. I learned that. And I remember them sitting there and saying, okay, we've got $1 million that we need to fund. That means we have to sell $50 million in groceries to have enough money to pay the $1 million. I mean, the margins are really, really tough. How'd you make it work?
Well, it's tough. I mean, everything matters, right? So when the margins are that thin, you watch everything. But, in my career in the grocery business, when I was hitting 1.5%, sometimes 2% net margins, and people were touting me as a hero in the industry, I really got concerned with what the future was in the grocery business, because it doesn't feel 1.5 doesn't feel good enough for all that you invest, the equipment that you need, the inventory that you need, and the effort you put into it day to day. It just didn't seem like it was a bright future for us. Yeah.
But you made it work, and then you decided, hey, there's a better way. Let me figure out how to get rid of this thing and move on to restaurants. But before you did that, did I read correctly in your bio that you incorporated live music into the grocery stores?
Well, no, I did all kinds of things. I won the Spirit of America Award in entrepreneurship in the grocery business by doing all these crazy things, trying to attract customers and trying to make a loyal customer, trying to make advocates, which is tough to do in the grocery business, because right across the street, if they run sugar a dime cheaper, I see my customers going right across the street. So, I had circuses in the parking lot. I had professional wrestlers come for autographs. I did everything, whatever it took to entertain my customers. And that's really ultimately that kind of led me out of the grocery side of it.
But it's, I mean, what a great experience. And I'm kind of a similar entrepreneur. It's like, let's just try something. Let's figure out what sticks. People bring us in all the time and they're like, well, what do you think? I said, well, let's try this. And they're like, will that work? I have no idea. Let's just try it.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to be out there and be first at something. Yeah. And just see how it goes.
Yeah. I interviewed a guy, Jesse Cole, and he owns the Savannah Bananas, the amateur baseball team. He wears a yellow tuxedo every day of the week.
Whatever it takes.
Exactly. He's a showman. He goes, it's not really baseball. It's a circus. And we just kind of happen to play baseball at the same time. I love how you started off this discussion. Everything matters. Yeah. If there's one thing, and I never really thought about it in these terms, if there's one thing, and we do profitability consulting. That's what we do. We go in and we help people maximize their profitability. And if there's probably one thing that we could convey to them, that everything matters.
Absolutely.
And what are some of the things that you learned in the grocery business that, a lot of businesses just overlook and they don't concentrate on?
Yeah, so in the grocery business, you're right, we're talking about the margins being so thin. I had to learn. I kind of was raised in the business. I started when I was 14 years old, racking bottles in the back room so Coca-Cola, Pepsi, RC Cola could come pick up their bottles back in the day when there was 10-cent return on bottles. And that would keep a young man busy on a weekend. So I worked my way all the way through the business. But as I got into management and then ownership at age 26, I had to learn a lot on my own. And part of that was that everything matters, that every little detail matters, that it mattered. Your pricing mattered to the customer. Your payroll mattered, your rent mattered, everything mattered. So I spent a lot of time really looking at the fine details of my P&L, trying to make it work. Because when I was hitting 1.5 and people were talking about it, being a successful business, I felt like 1.5 should be 2.5. I always felt like it should be more. So I was always looking in the little dark corners of the P&L to see what could really matter. And of course, you learn over time, there's usually a couple of really basic things that make the biggest difference. You can spend a lot of time on things that don't make a lot of difference, but your prime cost, or what really makes a difference, that's your cost of goods and your payroll. Those are the two biggest things that can make the biggest swing for you.
And you have an inventory that is constantly getting bad. The further, every minute that ticks by. I've got a clock. I'll be able to lift this up maybe somewhere. Where is it? It's there somewhere. There you go. It's a clock. Yeah. And I count down the minutes and the seconds and the hours of each month, because every single moment matters. Yeah. 2 minutes ago is gone forever. You've got to pay attention to the details, and I think so often business owners fail to do that.
And absolutely. And I found out you don't make profit by looking back. You've got to constantly look forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that 2 minute lost is 2 minutes gone, but I'm looking at the next 2 minutes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love what you say. You're looking at the fine details of the P&L. So for everyone listening out there, if you don't know what P&L stands for, we're not going to tell you. Figure it out, and you better learn it. Because if you're running a business and you don't understand the finer details of your P&L, you will end up dead. Yeah. You won't be in business, period.
Yeah. And hopefully you can get it just to a P.
Yes. I like that. The new business financials, the P. Yes, absolutely. We spent a lot of time talking about the P. When you started to shift into the restaurants, what did you learn that, looking back now, hindsight is 2020. What are some of the things that you learned? If I was a young restaurateur coming to you and saying, look, tell me what to avoid, what to go after, give us some of your wisdom in that area.
Right. Well, in the transition of going from grocery stores to restaurant, my transition was, somewhat of a passion move. I just had run this gamut with the grocery stores. I thought it would be all I'd ever do. And I actually made that statement in a newspaper article when I was kind of at the pinnacle of my grocery business. And several years later, like 15 years later, the same interviewer came to me and wanted to write an article on me on the restaurant side. And he said, "Here, I want you to read this." And that statement that this is all I know, this is all I'll ever do, was you can't ever look at it that way. You never know what's ahead of you. You just keep looking for the next opportunities. And for me, it was getting out of the grocery business. I had 4 grocery stores. I was deemed, successful in the industry. I was president of the Tennessee Grocers Association. I was national vice president of the Piggly Wiggly Association at the time. I had a lot going for me on the outside, but on the inside, there was something missing. And for me, it's that true desire to please people. I am a people pleaser at heart. And I talked about all those things I did in the grocery store with the parking lot carnivals and the cookouts and all this, putting up a wrestling ring in the middle of a grocery store, all these crazy things I did them to try to satisfy that need to want to please and make people happy. Well, I learned really early that in the grocery business, the next ad is what pleases people. It was never about all these other things. It was never a relationship business. And so it basically led me out of the business, and I found the restaurant business, which is all about people pleasing. The hospitality industry is all about pleasing people, and it's instant gratification. And I've just thrived in that environment. I've just loved it. So when you talk about advice, you got to find your passion. We've all kind of heard that. That's nothing new. That's nothing earth shaking, but finding your passion and then having the guts to put on the brakes and go for your passion is 2 different things. And at age 35, I did that. Kind of stopped in the pinnacle of a career and just reset myself and started all over. And I had to teach myself the restaurant business. So it wasn't an easy trek. Where I'm at now, it was a journey. It didn't just instantly go from being successful from the grocery business to being successful in the restaurant business. I had to take my lumps.
Well, yeah, this is your 3rd year on the Inc. 5000. And, a lot of people look at this and like, oh, look at this overnight success. He's like, last 3 years, read the bio, right? Look at the year, the beginning years.
Yeah, and most young entrepreneurs that come to me that are wanting to pick my brain, they want to look at me right where I'm at right now and want to know how to get there.
Yeah.
And I take them back to the days of when I got up at 3:30 every morning and I made biscuits every day, cooked the breakfast, opened the doors, served people, cooked lunch, then left my business in the hands of my associates, and I went and coached soccer with my kids, and then I'd come back and I'd close the restaurant. All those things that I had to do just to make it successful. I had to put on my yellow suit every day and get out there in front of the folks and make it happen. But
yeah,
I sold Christmas trees at Christmas. I put out fresh flowers in the spring. I did whatever it takes. And we're talking about a restaurant, but I was doing whatever it took to get off the ground and get my traction.
Yeah, it's so interesting because as I interview successful entrepreneurs, that's the one thing that is a common thread, a common denominator with everybody. And it doesn't matter if they're a billionaire at this point. It doesn't matter where they are. But if they're successful at this point, it's because they got in there and they grinded away for hours when no one was looking. They were doing what was difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, Thor, I've learned a lot through that too. At that time, early in my career, I lived by a motto that somebody told me: "If it's to be, it's up to you." So, if it's to be, it's up to me. Kind of motto, kind of wore heavy early in my career, and I really caught myself almost slowing my progress down by trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And I had to learn along the way that I had to entrust people. I had to spend more time coaching, teaching, and training than I did actually doing the physical work myself. And that's really when the traction started turning. Yeah. That's when I could trust people that would allow me to grow. That I could invest in people instead of investing in time.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. As a matter of fact, when I did my 2018 planning, that's the one thing that came out. The theme for the year is, if it's to be, it's up to we.
Yeah.
And I realize that I'm one of those guys that if there's a brick wall, it's going to get taken care of. It's going down. I'm going through it. I can do it. And of course that builds up, a belief system that, you can do it, you will do it, and you feel good. You kind of feel kind of macho about doing it yourself. And I realized that, look, Thor, you've got a team here. We can go further, faster if we're doing we versus me.
Absolutely.
And it's been I'm still working. I'm a work in process. But I realized that really makes sense. And you know where I trained with some Navy SEALs a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
And these guys are just incredible, incredible guys. And every single one of them, their motto is that you can't get it done by yourself. It's all about the team. And it was amazing because there were fit, guys there. I was the old guy. I was always at the end. But at some point during, the 2.5, 3 days, one of them broke down. They didn't have any more. And you had to take their sandbag off their shoulder. And they just needed to walk for a little bit. So it's fascinating how it kind of ebbed and flowed. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time. And I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter @ThorConklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.
Be on the lookout for part 2 of our conversation with Andy, where he tells us how to stay focused on the results, as well as the number 1 trait Andy looks for when hiring for his companies. I'll see you guys on another episode of Peak Performers Podcast.